Hi, this is Dar Williams, and you are listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchhart. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From our friend Randy Nichols, Blue Dot Fever is a scalper narrative. Don't fall for it.
From Witwik Punjwani via LinkedIn, Sync is dying quickly.
From Elizabeth Diltz Marshall at Billboard, Virgin Music co-CEOs on the downtown deal, fighting fraud with price, and why they're with a major.
And from Lane Brown at New York Magazine, the feed is fake. Well, all of this, and Jay is back from Atlanta and Music Biz Conference. We're going to hear from him on that and a lot of other cool stuff. So we're glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand! Your morning coffee is on the air. On the air. On the air. On the air. On the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchhart.
And you are back, Jay, from Hotlanta.
Yeah, it was
I'm sure you had a
beautiful there.
fabulous time.
Oh, yeah. I've been going to Music Biz since it was NARM, and it's been decades. The first one I went to was in 1991. This one, I think, was the best one I've ever been to. Just the quality of the panels and presentations. And we've mentioned this before. Part of the value to going to these conferences is the people that you bump into when you're in line for coffee.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really great. I'll give you a couple of quick highlights. They have a program for college students called Next Gen U. And I did a presentation called The New Music Business Playbook, Releasing Music in 2026 and Beyond. That was a phenomenal event because of the people I got to speak with afterwards. A couple of things that you'll find interesting. They had some of these people with booths and tables set up. Mm-hmm. And one of them was the record player maker. You've seen those Crosley record players.
Oh, yeah.
They're really cool. They've got some custom ones, with artists on them. Mm. And they've got some that play CDs that look like they're turntables. Anyway, It was really cool. I got to meet with the team over at Cosign and Set.Live. But they had panels on every topic you can think of: AI, the live industry, vinyl, health and well-being. And finally, I went to this presentation by our friend Jamie Markinet over at Luminate, and that was on the state of physical configurations. And he promised to come back on our podcast soon when they have their mid-year report.
Excellent, excellent. Well, and the good news is it's coming to the West Coast next year. So maybe
the Music Biz will be in San Diego.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun. All right. Well, before we get to the big stories, by the way, Spotify announced a new in-app experience, sort of like their year-end Wrapped recaps. It's your party of the years, a deep dive into your Spotify history. It's a new mobile-only in-app experience that offers a personalized retrospective of your listening history. That's pretty cool.
It's really cool. It looks sort of like Wrapped, but it's much more, goes deeper. So it's designed to be reflective. The experience highlights key milestones from your time on Spotify through newly surfaced data, including the following. 1, your first day on Spotify. Number 2, the total number of unique songs that you've streamed. Number 3, your first streamed track. I thought that was super interesting. And number 4, your all-time most streamed artist.
At the core of the experience is your all-time top songs playlist, a curated collection of your 120 most played tracks, complete with play counts and ready to be saved to your library. Each insight is paired with a shareable card, enabling you to easily save your results, share them with friends, or post them across social platforms.
Yeah, the experience is now available on mobile only across 144 markets in 16 languages. So to access this thing, open your Spotify app, search for Spotify 20 or Party of the Years, or visit spotify.com/20 on your mobile device. So a little bit more Spotify news. Kristen Robinson over at Billboard, she covers Spotify so well. She had a story that the headline was Spotify discontinues viral charts. So Spotify has discontinued its viral charts. Instead, popular internet songs will now only be showcased on Spotify's viral hits playlist, which is curated by human editors based on observing its behind-the-scenes metrics that indicate popularity.
The now discontinued viral charts were an algorithmically based series of charts, including some specific to countries, that automatically reflected surges of activity on the platform. Beyond that, little is known about what exact criteria qualified a song for these charts.
Yeah, but a source close to the matter says that there were concerns that the viral charts didn't accurately represent songs with true popularity on Spotify, and post that the viral hits playlist could allow Spotify more control over which songs are worthy of the highlight. That's pretty cool. I'll be checking that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before we get going on the big stories, though, Jay, let's thank our sponsors. Support for the show comes from Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. Founded by Bruce Houghton, Hypebot is edited by touring artist and publisher Jeremy Young and supported by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yeah, Bands in Town. Now over 100 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform connecting over 700,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates to music fans across all platforms. And Apple Music now uses Bands in Town for their concert listings.
Yep. And every week, I get to hang out with my good buddy Jay Gilbert, music business consultant, educator, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups.
Yeah, and every week I get to do this with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group. And this morning, I got to tell you about a little, it's not really a documentary, it's just a little mini film called The Singers on Netflix. And if you haven't seen it, it's, 12 minutes long, whatever it is, but it's joyful. It's really cool. You got to check that out.
And I'm going to watch it right after we record this. All right, let's jump into the stories, Jay.
Yeah, let's jump in. Our first story is from our friend Randy Nichols, and we've talked about Randy, and we've had him on the podcast. He's a strategic advisor, really in the live entertainment business, but he's also an artist manager, super smart guy. And we've been reading a lot this week about what they're calling blue dot fever. The headline of his piece is Blue Dot Fever is a scalper narrative. Don't fall for it. So with roughly 15,000 shows on sale this summer, 100 to 150 cancellations is entirely normal. And current rates are tracking at or below that number.
Yeah, over the past week, a string of tour cancellations went viral under a catchy new phrase, Blue Dot Fever. That's named for the unsold seats that show up as blue dots on Ticketmaster maps. The coverage framed it as evidence of a live music industry in-demand side freefall.
Yeah, but here's what's actually happening. The secondary ticket market is under serious pressure as artists and their teams take back control of their inventory. Scalpers are losing their arbitrage, and some of them, with very active social media presences, they figured out that blaming artists and promoters for overpricing is a much better story than explaining why they've been marking up tickets 10x for years.
Yeah, Blue Dot Fever didn't originate with fans. It spread from scalper Twitter. A lot of journalists ran it unknowingly. The stock market tells the real story. StubHub went public in September of 2025 at $23.50 a share. By March of 2026, it was trading around $8.70, down more than 60% in 6 months. Vivid Seats has lost roughly 88% of its value from its 52-week high, with its market cap contracting nearly 90% over the past year.
Yeah, Randy goes on to write that these aren't struggling companies in a struggling industry. They're companies whose core business model, buying low and marking up high, is getting squeezed from multiple directions simultaneously. So when your arbitrage disappears, so does your valuation. Now look at the actual cases being cited as evidence of fever.
Right. So the first one, Post Malone canceled a handful of early stadium dates in smaller secondary and tertiary markets. El Paso, Waco, Baton Rouge, Birmingham, Tampa, Oxford. His country album F1 Trillion came out in August of 2024. He is now 20 months removed from that release with no new music out, running a second stadium lap into markets that were never core to his fan base. His prior career was hip hop and pop.
Right. Country was a genuine pivot and a successful one for him, but the window for that album cycle was largely closed now. Last year's big ass stadium tour with Jelly Roll sold out every date and grossed a reported $170 million. This year's follow-up, off the same album, into softer markets, without new music to drive urgency, ran into predictable resistance. That's tour planning, not demand collapse.
Yeah, a direct precedent, the Black Keys canceled their entire 2024 North American Arena tour. They weren't over-touring. They were simply booked into venues too large for where they were in their career at that moment. They were selling out 5,000-seat rooms across Europe, while 14,000-seat arenas sat mostly empty in the U.S. The booking was the problem, not the fan base.
Yeah, Randy goes on to write, the Pussycat Dolls reunion tour is a calculated risk that didn't land in the U.S., but it's connecting in Europe. This is a bet that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. European fans showed up. American fans didn't respond to the same numbers. That's a market-by-market outcome, not a systematic signal. Reunion tours targeting nostalgic audiences are inherently high variance. Some win, some don't. It's not a fever.
Right. He says, now, are rising ticket prices a concern? Yes, it's a legitimate conversation worth having. Average concert ticket prices have climbed from $82 back in 2020 to roughly $144 today. At some point, that ceiling becomes real. He says, but here's what the data actually shows. Major tours are not hitting that ceiling yet. Industry cancellation rates are running at about 1% to 2%. That's flat to historical norms. Amphitheater ticket sales are up double digits year over year. Concert bookings are pacing ahead across stadiums, arenas, and amphitheaters globally.
Right. Let's not let facts get in the way of a good story, Mike. So the pricing debate is worth having honestly, Randy writes. What isn't honest is using a handful of misbooked tours as evidence of an industry in crisis, especially when the loudest voices pushing that story have a financial interest in keeping artists from controlling their own tickets.
He goes on to say the live music industry has real issues worth covering. Junk fees, speculative ticket listings, bot networks, and secondary market that has extracted billions from fans and artists for decades. The scalping industry losing ground is not one of those issues.
Yeah, he ends it by saying, don't let the people profiting from the problem write the diagnosis. Great piece by Randy Nichols. Really well done. Our next piece is from Ritwik Punjwani, and this is via LinkedIn. He's one of our favorite experts in the music IP and royalty finance area. And the headline was Sync is Dying, and then in parentheses, quickly. So Ritwik argues that the music industry is fixated on the wrong AI question. While everyone debates whether Suno or Udio will replace Drake or Taylor Swift, AI is already gutting a far less glamorous but more enormously valuable layer of the business, the background music economy.
Yeah, he says roughly $2 billion in annual catalog revenue sits in library queues, production tracks, podcast intros, ad beds, and royalty-free stock music, and AI tools are now producing that same product at roughly 99.9% lower cost. The substitution isn't theoretical or future tense, he insists. It's happening on a quarter-by-quarter basis right now, and institutional catalog buyers are not pricing it into their valuations.
Right. His central insight is that sync licensing is not one market, but four, each with a radically different exposure to AI. Premium artist sync, like Super Bowl ads, Hollywood placements. Those are around $50,000 to $1 million per use. And that's protected by brand equity and cultural memory. The mid-tier, library, and microsync layers below it, they represent 1.5 to 1.6 billion in annual revenue. They're not. A Suno Pro subscription costs $10 per month and generates roughly 500 songs, which works out to about 2 cents per track versus $5 to $2,500 through traditional channels. For a well-being app needing 200 meditation tracks or a podcast needing 1,000 queue beds, the rational economic choice has already shifted.
The dangerous part, he says, is that institutional buyers like Citron Cooperman, Shot Tower Capital, and Virtu Global are valuing sync income with the same decay assumptions they use for streaming royalties. He says that's a category error. Streaming is protected by listener habit and platform inertia. Sync buyers are professional music supervisors with zero emotional loyalty who will pick whatever is cheapest, fastest, and most rights clear. A library catalog acquired in 2022 at 14 times trailing sync revenue is, by his math, effectively a 30 to 40 times asset against sustainable forward revenue. And the compression will surface in fund LP reports over years 3 to 5 post-acquisition.
Right. So here are the key takeaways from this article. The AI replacement story everyone telling, it's the wrong one. Heritage artists with brand equity and a parasocial fan connections are largely safe. The threat is to anonymous music underneath everything else. So sync is broken up in 4 markets, not one. The first one is the top tier, then mid-tier, then library, and then finally micro sync.
Right. So the top tier, that's about $400 to $500 million, is insulated. The mid-tier, library, and microsync layers, that can vary between anywhere from 1.5 to 1.6 billion combined, are structurally exposed and already migrating to AI. The cost difference is not incremental. It's civilizational, he says. A 99% to 99.9% cost reduction makes the substitution decision rational every quarter for every buyer at every level of the content economy.
Yeah, sync income has no structural inertia. Unlike streaming, there's no habit, no lock-in, no fan loyalty. Music supervisors and content producers optimize purely for price, speed, and clearing the rights. Composition matters more than size. 2 catalogs earning $500,000 a year in sync look identical on paper, but represent completely different assets depending on whether that income comes from premium placements or podcast intros and stock music style cues.
Yeah, he says the selling window is closing. Sync-dependent catalogs without an artist anchor are losing value in real time, he says. Sellers waiting for multiples to recover will be selling a smaller revenue stream at a worse multiple in 2028 than they could have gotten back in 2024.
Yeah, performance dispersion is coming. Over the next 4 to 6 years, funds that underwrote AI substitution into their models will compound. Funds that didn't will quietly hold assets whose income is already compressing.
Yeah, so my favorite line in the article was this: the death of sync is not happening to the songs people remember. It is happening to the songs they have never noticed in the first place. You got to check out the full story. It is, of course, in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and that is some scary stuff, Jay. It is scary stuff.
Yeah, but it talks about how, Queen is going to be Queen.
Right.
These top syncs won't be affected by this. Our next piece is from Lane Brown for New York Magazine. And it was a fantastic article. It's a really long article, so we're just going to talk about some of the highlights. The headline was "The Feed is Fake." The article exposes how much of what feels organic, like on social media, viral songs, hyped movies, celebrity buzz, political controversies, that stuff is actually the product of paid, quote unquote, clipping campaigns and narrative operations.
Yeah, marketing agencies hire armies of regular people to chop content into bite-sized clips and post them through dummy accounts to fool algorithms into thinking real interest is building. Lane Brown infiltrates the Discord and WAP communities where this work is coordinated, interviews the operators, including ex-Floodify founder Joe Lim, who once ran 65,000 fake accounts, and argues that the entire infrastructure of public conversation has been quietly captured by manipulators.
Right. And even superstars like Justin Bieber, indie bands like Geese, we've talked a lot about that lately, political campaigns, and brands like American Eagle, they benefit from manufactured hype that's nearly impossible to distinguish from genuine attention. So here are just a few key takeaways from this article.
Yeah, number one, the first, an estimated 90% of internet content is advertising in disguise, according to Joe Lim, whose company Floodify ran, again, 65,000 dummy social media accounts and posted up to 50,000 videos a day on behalf of record labels, celebrities, and political clients.
Yeah, we like to say it's not fraud, it's marketing.
That's right.
So the other point, this clipping, it's the dominant tactic. Agencies cut songs, trailers, podcasts, and speeches into short clips, then pay freelancers roughly $1 to $2 per 1,000 views to post them via normal-looking social media accounts. Algorithms read the early surge as authentic and push the content to real users.
Right. The third takeaway, even global superstars use it. Paid clipping campaigns ran during Justin Bieber's 2026 Coachella sets, helping fuel a 171% streaming increase and pushing his 2012 song Beauty and a Beat to number one on the Billboard Global 200.
Right. And the fourth point, clipping is absurdly cheap, about $1 per 1,000 views. That's a CPM. Compared to $10 for billboards, $30 plus for TV, and roughly 10x more for officially labeled TikTok ads. One agency reported a sub $10,000 campaign yielding nearly 100 million views.
Wow. The fifth point, the Chaotic Good Projects scandal broke the practice into public view. Co-founders bragged at South by Southwest about trend simulation for clients like Geese and Bieber, prompting Wired to call Geese's rise a psyop.
Yeah, number 6, narrative campaigns. They're even more insidious than clipping. They don't just amplify content, they manufacture the consensus around it. Operatives flood comment sections with coordinated opinions, best performance of the year, because most users outscore their first impressions to the apparent crowd.
Yeah, the seventh takeaway, both sides of controversies can be paid for. Analytics firm Goody have found that the political furor over Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show had mirror image volumes and cadences on both sides, suggesting a single actor amplified both. The Sydney Sweeney American Eagle Great Jeans backlash was 15% fake accounts, and the stock rose 10% during it.
Super interesting. The next one, crisis PR firms operate at the dark end of the spectrum. Court documents from the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case revealed a $175,000 4-month plan by Tag PR to manipulate SEO, that's search engine optimization, and to seed Reddit threads and to bury anyone, with CEO Melissa Nathan promising the work would be untraceable.
Right. Well, the ninth point, it's mostly illegal but unenforced. The FTC's late 2024 rule banning undisclosed endorsements and fake account networks carries a $50,000 or more per violation penalty, but no clipping agency operator interviewed had ever heard of an investigation. An FTC spokesperson declined to comment on enforcement plans.
As they do. And the final one, traditional gatekeepers reinforce the fakery. Journalists scrolling the same manipulated feeds mistake astroturfed hype for genuine cultural moments and then make them real by covering them. As the New York Times profiles of live streamers whose actual audiences are smaller than a slow hour of cable news, and the next phase per limb is marketers will stop targeting human and start optimizing content for the AI agents that humans rely on instead.
Wow. Boy, that is really a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Great article. I highly encourage people to read the whole thing, and there's some graphics in there that are really good. Those are just our favorite 10 sort of highlights.
Yeah, but it's a fascinating article. Our last story, it's by Elizabeth Diltz Marshall over at Billboard. Virgin Music co-CEOs on downtown deal, fighting fraud with price, and why they're with a major. So in that Billboard article, Virgin Music Group's co-CEOs Nat Pastor and JT Myers unpack the strategic logic between UMG's $775 million acquisition of Downtown Music Group, their philosophy on serving independent artists from inside the world's largest music company, and how they're thinking about fraud, AI, and the shifting definition of independence.
Yeah, this was an incredible interview. We're going to give you some of the highlights. The through line really is that Virgin's leadership, they believe that the real growth story in music isn't manufacturing the next pop superstar. It's building infrastructure for the swelling middle class of working artists. As Pastor put it, the goal isn't the next Sabrina Carpenter, but rather to create 10,000 more career artists.
Yeah, some of the interesting takeaways we found in the article. The first one is the Downtown deal is a bet on the indie middle class. So UMG chairman Lucien Grange has compared this $775 million Downtown acquisition to UMG's transformational 2011 EMI deal. It's about catching up to Sony's The Orchard and believe in the high-growth global indie segment, with Downtown's Fuga, CD Baby, and Song Trust filling out Virgin's offering.
Right. Number 2, distribution alone isn't the prize. Adjacent services are. Myers is blunt that pure digital distribution is commoditized. Customers have more than 100 options, including working with nobody, he said. The competitive edge lives in the second, third, fourth, 12th most important things: neighboring rights, sync, physical, and user-generated content monetization.
Yeah, interestingly, the third point, Myers reversed his position on owning a DIY service like CD Baby. Previously skeptical, he now sees an emergent class of creators making a living for the first time and an opportunity to layer AI-powered tools on top of basic upload functionality.
Right. Number 4 takeaway, pricing is being weaponized against fraud and AI slop. So Myers argues that unlimited uploads for a flat fee model, it attracts bad actors. CD Baby's revenue share, taking about 9% roughly, is intentionally unattractive to slop factories who gravitate to the cheapest provider. He's explicit. He doesn't want a business that profits by charging artists more than they earn in royalties.
Yeah, the other interesting point is the independent inside a major paradox is the pitch. So Pastor and Myers initially rejected Grange's offer to run UMG's indie distribution arm. They only said yes when it was reframed as helping the biggest music company in the world be a champion for independence. They claim operational autonomy with major labels scale, their own supply chains, but multiple weekly conversations with UMG's digital chief Michael Nash on industry-wide policy.
Right, a couple more. Number 6, the definition of independent is dissolving. With BMG and Concord merging, Pastor admits Virgin isn't sure whether that combined entity is even a competitor. He frames the blurring of the lanes as a net positive, more paths to success for artists.
Another point for the article, lower margins are the norm, and that's fine. So Myers compares the indie services sector to concert promotion and agency businesses, all healthy, all operating at lower margins than traditional record labels. CD Baby fits that profile.
Yeah, and finally, the story sort of beneath the story. These are 2 former investment bankers turned artist managers. M Theory, where they used to work, that sold to UMG in 2022. And they're now stewarding what may be UMG's most strategically important non-superstar bet, of the decade.
Yeah, the interview is essentially Virgin's public answer to a question regulators, indie labels, and artists have all been asking. Can a major owned division genuinely serve the independent ecosystem, or is indie just a brand UMG is acquiring? Pastor and Meyer's answer is that scale plus cultural alignment plus disciplined pricing, and not ideology, is what makes the structure work. Well,
Yeah,
that's a
couple of
very
smart
interesting
guys.
and insightful article for sure.
Yeah.
We wish them all luck. All right. Well, hey, we got to wrap up the show. If you can believe it, it's time for the end of the show. Big thanks to our sponsors, Hypebot and Bands in Town. By the way, if you'd like to advertise in the podcast and the newsletter, you can visit yourmorning.coffee for more information. Music is by the Licorice Quartet, a band that we know and love. And by the way, if you do like the show, please just tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate that. So, on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.